but I got a job in the college bar.
Yeah.
So that's where I worked. So it's very much my identity. Booze was my identity now that you look back from a very early age.
Absolutely.
And I loved it. That was very much glamorized as well.
Yeah.
So for us, it was glamorized. It was glamorized for my age group as a girl because I was a feminist.
Yeah.
So for me, it was drink any of the lads under the table.
Yeah.
And then it became very much part of my culture as a student.
Yeah. Hi everybody, my name's Stephen Panter and this is the Great in You podcast by the Great Schools Trust. Just a reminder to everybody about what the podcast is about. I'm trying to speak to people that have experienced difficulties in their life and some form of trauma, things that they have experienced that have really affected them significantly. And then from that, they've brought about some kind of positivity or a way to help other people. So real positive stories really from real difficult situations. So today I've got with me a good friend of mine now actually. We've known each other for probably about 12 months, maybe slightly longer, and got introduced through a friend at the college that I used to work at, and we've become really good colleagues and really good friends. But I mean, Liz does some fantastic work with young people around positive psychology, and does some great work. She's an influencer, I would say now. She might not say she is herself, but she's an influencer. She's a blogger. She's a teetotaler as well. But you know, she's had some difficulties in her life, and that's what the podcast today is about. Really, just finding out what happened, who Liz is as a person, what happened to her, and what good came of that, and how she now really helps and supports people. So, Liz.
Oh, wow.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. And that was such a lovely introduction.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And you are a friend, Steve. And can I just also say that I'm very grateful to you because working with you has been a real eye-opener. You've given me the opportunity. You've believed in me from the start. And I think that you're quite visionary. I mean, doing things like this it's amazing. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here and to speak to everyone today. And hello, everyone.
Well, thanks, and it's reciprocal. And I think the great thing about working in the areas that we work in is that you get to meet fantastic people, and you get to meet people and then you're introduced to people of theirs as well, which has happened to us, hasn't it?
This is happening a lot. We're networking a lot, aren't we?
Yeah, and I'm starting to do that a lot more now. I think when you're a bit younger, you don't do that necessarily as much. But now I'm getting a bit older and I really want to do these podcasts and really want to speak to people and get their stories. And when we did the introduction podcast, we talked about other people listening to these stories as well and inspiring other people. And I think that you, with your story, will definitely do that. So I'm going to start with the first question. I think it'll just flow then.
Yeah.
So the first question, and I do like to ask my guests this, is what was life like for you, kind of growing up? Where did you grow up? What was your upbringing like? And how has that affected you? Do you think in your adult life?
Yeah, lovely. Nice question. I had a lovely upbringing. I was born like an Irish London girl at the time. I was born in London to Irish parents, obviously. I regard myself as Irish. But at the time, it was the 70s. And it was nice. It was suburban. And we lived with my uncle. And my uncle had a bit of a midlife crisis and decided that he wanted to become a monk. And the reason why we lived with my uncle, which was what a lot of Irish families did in those days. I mean, my parents came from poverty. Yeah. There were 9 in each family.
Wow.
Both of them left school after their primary school education and went to London in their early teens to find work. So part of the reason why we lived with him is because he was a really good earner. He worked in the bank.
Wow.
And when he decided to go into the priesthood or become a monk, we were left with a stark, decision to make. And we ended up moving home to the middle of nowhere. I call it home because it is home. It's Ireland. We went home to my mother's side of the family in West Limerick.
So what age were you then?
I was 11.
Okay.
So I had just done my primary education. I just got into a really good, nice girls' school called St. Michael's in North London. And I had to go through all of the, the interview process and exams and things like that. So it was like a grammar school. Yeah. And we went from there. I was moved back into primary school because in Ireland they go to school a lot later.
Yeah.
And it was in the middle of the Troubles, and I had a very, very strong Cockney accent, mate, like that. It was very like that, yeah.
Oh.
So
this is your idea. This is your worst nightmare.
It was hard. It was, and also I was beginning to find my feet as a young girl.
Yeah.
And I was getting a little bit more freedom, so I was allowed to go on buses around London, and well, not around London, not into the city, but around our area. And I went from that to not having a bus service to being 3 miles from the nearest village and 10 miles from the nearest town.
So even like your friendship groups and stuff, you probably would have had people that you lived around. And in school, you had your good, solid friendship groups, I imagine, being at the same primary school. And
that was it. And also the culture, we were very active in the Irish Catholic community. So my parents had that scaffolding as well. We went from that to nothing except to having our family, we'll say our immediate family and our external family, and that was quite difficult. It was quite difficult, and I did experience quite a lot of bullying in those early days
back in Ireland.
Okay. And had to adapt pretty quickly. And that was the first real kind of challenge I had, I suppose, that shook me out of that cozy suburban London experience.
What kind of bullying?
Mainly, Brits go home, and there was a bit of that, bit of playground kind of, my bag would be taken and emptied, and I'd get into physical scraps because I wasn't going to sit back and go, this is okay. But my sister and brother got, they'd get quite scared because I was the oldest in the family.
Okay.
But it lasted for a good while. But at the same time, I was still forging new friendships because there was that kind of double-sided, I suppose, thing of I was a bit exotic as well because I was from out of town. Yeah. So you had that. So there was I had
intriguing as well for people.
Yeah. So I had some great friends, and I made some great friendships.
Yeah.
And I actually had a great teenage life. I loved it. Once I settled, I had the best fun ever. Brilliant. Probably too much.
Right, okay. So what were your parents like?
Mum and dad were great, just hardworking.
Were they strict? Were they?
They were quite easygoing, to be honest.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So it was the early 80s when I was a teenager, and we were allowed to do a lot more than my children are allowed to do. I can tell you that. Okay. We were able to get into nightclubs. We were able to go out. By nightclubs, it was small little kind of discos. But lots of freedom. And
so how old were you when you went to your first nightclub?
14.
Okay, I was 15.
Yeah, definitely. 14, 15. There was a community thing on that they used to have on in the Olympic, which was this giant kind of old ballroom of romance thing that they had for teenagers. But people used to smuggle in alcohol. Yeah. And we ended up we grew out of that pretty quickly. So we wanted to go to Xanadu's nightclub where the beautiful
what a name.
Where the beautiful people meet.
Yeah, what a name. I was the same. We used to go to like a kind of, we called it a teeny bopper night on a Friday night. It was like 6 till 9. Yeah. And then we used to leave there and go straight into the nightclubs and stuff.
This is it, yeah.
I don't know how we did it, how we got away with it. But my son's 15 now.
Yeah.
And the idea of him doing that now is just like,
it horrifies me.
Can't imagine it.
Do you know what though? I don't think that they're like us in that sense either. No. And I think it could be a lot of different influences. It could be social media. Yeah. Because a lot of the stuff that we did back in those days, we do not want to have. No. Accounts of and reminders of. Thank you very much.
Not at all. What were your kind of first experiences of alcohol then?
So my first experience of alcohol was it was like a social glue.
Yeah.
And I had gone from feeling like an outsider, very much an outsider, to finding this substance that actually, I was never particularly an introvert, but it made me even more of an extrovert. Yeah. It made me the center of attention, having fun. I had my social group. And every time I drank, it was with people who I was bonding with.
Yeah.
So for me, it was fun. It was freeing, it was rebellious, it was exciting, and it was all of the things that, people our age talk about now.
Yeah.
And very much enjoyable. But also I realized that I had the propensity to take it a bit too far. So I thought possibly that was just my age group, being a teenager.
So
I had
what age were you then? Sorry, when you...
So when I wasn't drinking regularly as a teenager. It was just when I could kind of gather a bit of money. I did work in a bar at the age of 15, and I didn't tend to. So that was quite good for me because I was able to socialise and make a bit of money at the same time. Yeah. It was my aunt's bar.
So did you think at the time then that you had the propensity to take it too far?
Yeah, I knew I did.
You knew you did at that age.
Yeah, I think
that's quite reflective, isn't it? At that age,
because I could see the way other people were drinking. Everybody drank to excess. We're in Ireland, remember?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's very much ingrained in our culture. Yeah. We all drank to excess. Yeah. And at that stage, our parents weren't drinking like we as parents drink today, or, a lot of our age group drink today, because they weren't coming in with wine. They weren't being targeted. There wasn't wine in the supermarkets. My dad would drink at weddings, or, if people were visiting from England, they'd go to the pub.
So they weren't big drinkers? Really?
Not particularly,
Only
no.
if there was an event or if there's something
not
like
every weekend.
Occasion.
No, not every weekend. And definitely not at home unless we had visitors. But every time we would have visitors, there would be drink, and we would get to a stage of kind of nicking it ourselves, as teenagers. And there'd always be a sing-song. It was always joyous. Yeah. So whenever the booze came out, there was always joy, there was always crack. And you can see that still today.
And I imagine as well, through that period, there was probably quite a lot of anxiety and stress with what was happening in society, wasn't there, in Ireland? Yeah. So obviously from a release point of view.
Very much so.
Alcohol was the thing that, that kind of, I suppose, allowed people to escape that.
And to express themselves. We express ourselves through booze. Yeah. So, a lot of Irish society, you end up kind of bottling a lot up, but it comes out in the booze through songs. I mean, through our rich expression, through our literature, that's all there. But you look at all the tropes of the Irish drunk and, the Irish, creative, like Peter O'Toole or Richard Harris, the whole, that was very much glamorized as well. Yeah. So for us, it was glamorized. It was glamorized for my age group as a girl because I was a feminist. Yeah. So for me, it was drink any of the lads under the table. Yeah. And then it became very much part of my culture as a student. Yeah. Because I became the first person in my family to go to university.
So where did you go to university?
I went to Galway in the west of Ireland, which is amazing. Yeah. I love it there. And it's where my father was from.
Okay. So was he happy?
He was so proud, Steve. Yeah. Actually, it's his anniversary today. Would you believe that? Wow. Yeah. So I think he's looking down at me now because he was so proud that I went to UCG, which is somewhere that he used to work cycling as a messenger boy before he left. And he would deliver to people who lived near there. Wow. Because that's where the posh people lived.
In a generation there, you've got, a massive example of social mobility, haven't you?
Absolutely.
I was the first person to go to university as well. Nobody had thought about university. Yeah. What did Mickey Flanagan say? People in our neighbourhoods used to dream of driving a van. Yeah. It's a joke that he has, and it always cracks me up because aspirationally that's what people aspired to.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't, so I was lucky to go to university, but that's not something that some people aspire to.
We are very blessed, aren't we, that we've had that. And I remember my nana said to me when I said I was going to apply, because I wasn't going to apply, because it cost money to apply for the CAO form. Yeah. And I didn't even want to ask my parents. And my nana said, what are you doing that for? Why would you be doing that? Sure, aren't there great jobs down the road in Cantoa, which was the creamery, which was our local creamery.
You went a little bit Irish.
Well, that's my nana. That's my nana saying, isn't it? Why would you be doing that? Why would you be going there? Yeah. And I remember that thinking, so there was a certain limiting expectation, although my parents were so encouraging. Yeah. And my mum and dad would do anything. When I'd say, I think I'd fly to the moon, they'd say, great, good idea. To this day, my mother would say it. If I said, I've got this great idea, I think I'm going to fly to the moon.
So it sounds like you had quite a nice, strong foundation, good family unit.
Brilliant.
Good family unit that was supportive, encouraging, all those things. So then obviously you went to university. Yeah. And obviously everything that comes with university. How old were you when you went?
18.
18, yeah. So
I found myself.
You've already got this kind of personality where you're almost this kind of one of the boys and you'll drink everyone on the table and stuff. And then you had being in Ireland, being Irish, being 18, having that background that you had in, exposed to alcohol, and then you straight into university.
So you can
kind of see
Yeah,
You know,
and I worked my way through college as well, obviously, because I didn't get a grant and my father was unemployed at the time.
Yeah.
So I had to raise money to pay for the fees, which aren't like fees today,
No.
thankfully. But I got a job in the college bar.
Yeah.
So that's where I worked. So it's very much my identity. Booze was my identity now that you look back from a very early age.
Absolutely.
And I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, I was the same.
Yeah.
You know, loved it. So what was, you know, in general, what was university like? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was magic.
Yeah. Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve?
Well, I didn't really have loads of ambition in those days.
Did you do a teaching degree, did you?
I did a degree in English, English and philosophy. English was my passion. I loved reading, and I could see from reading and from books and from poetry that it gave me an escape, and it gave me an insight into other worlds. It was magical. It still is. I adore it. And I was and I loved writing.
Yeah.
I loved writing. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a journalist, investigative preferably.
Oh, okay.
That was what was in my head at the time.
You would have been good at that, I think.
I just thought, for me, you know, I saw people like Kate Adie.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that is cool. I want to do that.
Yeah.
But then I got to uni and I realised everyone was as good as me. And then the imposter syndrome came in and it was just like, oh. Yeah. And I now know there's a certain element of self-sabotage in that.
Yeah.
So there was no like ambition to get a first.
Yeah.
You know, it was plod along, have the crack, you know, do the bare minimum, but do what you need to do to pass and pass. And I did.
That's what you did.
No, I got a 2-2.
Yeah.
So I did okay.
Yeah.
But not.
We like to call that
great.
a Desmond in the
a Desmond.
in the trade, a Desmond 2-2.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
So then you know, at what point in that did you decide that you wanted to be a teacher?
I decided I wanted to travel.
Okay.
And I really had a passion for travel. And I think it's because I was born in England and raised in Ireland. And I had, you know, at the age of 17, I went to London and worked for the summer in London. At 18 and 19, I went to London to various people there as well, stayed with students.
Oh, because you still had connections there.
Still had connections in London.
Great.
And then as a student, I got a summer job in Germany picking fruit. I got a summer job in Holland. I got a J1 visa to go to America.
Nice.
So the more I started to travel and see the world, the more I was convinced I wanted to do something that enabled me to work with people, because I loved people. I still love people. I really love communicating and connecting with people. It sets me, alight. And to actually travel.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I thought about journalism, and I thought about doing a master's in philosophy at one stage, which I started. But I thought teaching would be my ticket to enable me to get out and to see the world. And it did.
Real.
It really did.
So where did you do your teaching degree?
I did my teaching degree in Galway.
Oh, same place?
Same place.
Oh, okay.
I was in Galway for 5 years.
Wow.
And then after that, so literally it would have been probably this time, 30 years ago, I graduated.
Qualified.
Yeah.
Okay. So where was your first teaching job?
My first teaching job was in Norwich, near Norwich in East Anglia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I worked.
Why Norwich? What happened?
Because I just applied. In those days, it was before the internet. I just applied everywhere. I didn't even know what the job was for. I didn't know, was it English and religion? Was it religion teaching? Was it just... Because at the time when I was accepted to go over for the interview, they said they'd pay my way.
Oh, wow.
So I said, brilliant, I can get a cheap flight from there to America. Because I was going to the States for the summer on a J1.
Even though it's the other side.
But it's cheaper from London to fly from Dublin, because Virgin were flying in those days from London.
Yeah,
so that was my game plan. I didn't think I'd get the job, got the job, and ended up in quite a deprived area with a really challenging school, which was an eye-opener.
And what was that like? What was the job like day to day?
Very hard, very hard. In fact, funnily enough, like something like 15 years later, I met somebody from the same school when I was on a training course in London, and she was a newly qualified teacher, and we got talking, and she was in the same situation that I was in.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, it hasn't changed.
And
it was very challenging, lots of behavioural issues.
Yeah.
Because I was teaching English, the workload was immense, and I had a huge learning jump as well, because I was used to the Irish education system. The English education system is completely different.
Yeah.
And I found it was micromanaged. There was a lot of micromanagement, a lot of stress. Ofsted was huge.
And there was that, I suppose, was that when you're young, when you start a job or you graduate or whatever it is, or any type of job, there's that people pleasing, isn't there, initially?
Yeah.
That's challenging, isn't it? Especially if you're in a difficult environment.
Yeah.
Was that environment stressful? Did it cause you some anxiety? Did it cause you...
It was quite stressful, but I was able to take it in my stride.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, I should really be behind a bar.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. And I actually did get a part-time job in Norwich in a pub.
Okay.
I swear there.
So there's a real pattern, isn't there? Yeah. I think you,
Yeah.
like you said before, I think you see that as not just, you're in an area where people are drinking, but it's socializing as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that it seems like you need that and you thrive off of it.
Yeah.
But was that one of the reasons? Because I suppose one of the reasons we've brought you onto the podcast today was to talk about, alcohol and the impact that alcohol has had on your life. You can see those foundations and how it's happened. Do you think that those decisions, in retrospect, in hindsight, do you think you were making those decisions for a reason? And do you think that affected you negatively in the future? If you could look back on it,
Yeah, to be fair, I wanted to work in the bar for the crack again. Yeah. It was the party, it was the fun, and it was the best fun. And it was on the Unthank Road, which is a real student area.
Yeah.
So I was still hankering after student days.
And you're on your own as well. You
on
don't
my
know
own,
anybody.
No, finding my instant kind of social circle there in the bar. And, they were all a bit mad. It was great. It was good fun. And from there I became, I got a job abroad and I became an expat.
Right.
So I worked in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East and I worked in Qatar.
Wow.
And the expat drinking culture there is phenomenal.
It's big, yeah.
So when you're teaching, it is a very stressful job.
Yeah.
It is a very stressful job. Teachers are known,
aren't they? We'll have a bottle of wine of a weekend or every night.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
And you get into that habit, don't you?
And when you drink like that, you surround yourself with people who validate your choices.
Yeah.
So the people I was surrounding myself with, whether working in the bar at the weekend in Norwich or whether socializing in the beach club with fellow teachers in Abu Dhabi, were big drinkers.
Yeah.
We used to laugh and say we swim in the same pool.
Yeah.
And that's why for me, when I decided to actually stop, it was quite difficult because it had become, as you can see, I'd evolved. And as I grew, that became very much part of my identity, that party girl.
So before we talk about kind of you stopping, when did you realise that you had a problem?
Yeah.
What was the moment? What was the trigger where you said, or was it a series of triggers? Did you lead up to it, or was there one thing that happened and you were like, this has gone too far now? I
think every hangover is another chance for you to self-reflect and go, never again. This is disgusting. I hate it. Every time you break a promise with yourself, as you're getting older and you're going, oh, why am I feeling like this? This isn't cool. And you start to see how the supposed positive effects of the night before are outweighed terribly by the effects, especially the mental. I think the mental effects the next day and the day after and the anxiety and the hangxiety they call it.
And there's something there, isn't there, around productivity as well?
Absolutely.
If you're a professional,
you're just exhausted.
You're on that cycle.
So you're quite happy to get your little spot, sit there and go no further.
Yeah.
You're quite happy to ignore potential, to quell ambition, to just go plod, to live lives of quiet desperation is what Henry Thoreau would call it. Yeah. And I think that was kind of where I was.
Is that Louis' dad, by the way?
No, it's not, no.
Because he's a writer, isn't he?
Yeah, no,
Louis
it's not.
Theroux's dad's a writer.
This guy wrote a thing called On Walden Pond. It's really, really good. But so basically for me, I knew I wasn't rock bottom.
Yeah.
This is the thing. I could go for a week without it. I wasn't drinking every day. I certainly didn't drink in the morning or in the afternoon.
So it wasn't to that
So
level.
it wasn't at that level. And I drank the way I drank from the minute I started drinking when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
That drinking was sustained, that kind of pushing it a little bit too far.
So you drank to get pissed.
Absolutely. But not having an off switch.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand why people drank without wanting to do that. And I've done, since I've stopped, I've done a lot of research into dopamine and I know that there's a direct connection.
Some people can say, well, I'm going to open a bottle of wine. I'll have one glass. I'll put the top back on and put it in the fridge.
Yeah, I don't know any of them. I don't know those people. I've never met them.
No.
But do you know what I mean?
Can't,
No, I know. I'm being facetious, but it's true. Yeah. Because we used to joke. I remember there'd be tips about, freeze your leftover wine and use it for cooking. And we'd be roaring laughing going, who does that? So people would buy me those stoppers as jokes.
Yeah.
I'd be like, who's ever used that?
Yeah.
But for me, I think the real epiphany was when I saw Lucy Rocker, who's the founder of Soberistas. And it was years later, you know, this was exactly 10 years ago, actually, Steve. And I had been struggling, thinking, oh, this is adding no value to my life, but it's what I do.
Yeah.
I'll stop, but it's so boring. All of these stories that we're told and that we tell ourselves and that we perpetuate to enable us to continue to do the behavior that isn't serving us.
Yeah.
So I'm not that bad. I would always tell myself, I don't drink every day. I don't drink it all day, and so on and so forth. And I'd even Google, am I an alcoholic? And you'd look at the scale and you say, no, I'm not there. I didn't know about a thing called alcohol use disorder at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a spectrum of abuse. And I didn't really understand the full impact of the damage to my physical and mental health, if I'm honest. And I saw Lucy Rocker, who was a woman just like me, and she was on this morning. It was my day off with my little girl. She was 2 at the time. I was hungover because it was my day off. So the night before, I'd have made spaghetti bolognese or something with an excuse to drink some wine with him.
You planned that drinking because you were like, I've got no responsibility.
And I'm also like, you know, sophisticated professional, and this is what we do, you know? This is what we do. We drink wine with our dinner, Yes. We just don't have an off switch. Yeah. But I was watching this and suddenly the ticker tape came up and it was grey area drinking. Middle-aged women, do you have a problem? And I was like, oh, here we go again. It's going to be more nanny state stuff. Yeah. And suddenly she opened her mouth and it was like I was looking in the mirror. It was such a moment of realization. This is why I think it's so important to share our stories.
Of course, yeah.
Lucy Rocker was bravely sitting on the couch, and this morning, they weren't giving her an easy ride.
No.
You know, it was Phil and Holly at the time, and Phil was particularly, I feel that he felt a bit triggered, to be honest, because he was getting a bit defensive, but your drinking's different to all of ours. Yeah. And the more I sat there and watched her, the more I thought, she is telling my story. Different events, different things, but the same story, same university kind of story of drinking to excess, becoming a professional and taking it too far on too many occasions. Yeah. And she spoke about this support group that she set up called Soberistas. And that day, I started to do some research, but it takes a long time for the penny to drop. Some people, when they change a habit, they see something, they have an epiphany, and they stop the next day.
It happens,
It's rare enough that happens in habit change.
Would it be fair to say then that it's strange, isn't it? Because you could have gone out on that half an hour part that was, you could have been anywhere, you could have been distracted, you could have been in the garden, you could have been, do you feel, was that your kind of light bulb moment?
It was, and you know, the thing is, I wouldn't have been sitting there watching this morning if I wasn't hungover.
So that's the irony
because
of
I'm so much more productive when I'm not. So I would have probably been going to a mum's group or something with my daughter, but that was a day when I'd be like, let's just put this on, and I was drinking a giant cup of tea. And
it's always a giant cup of tea after you've had a drink.
That's it. And I'd put sugar in it. You know, I never drink sugar in my tea. But
that's that habit, isn't it?
It is,
you're on this cycle, aren't you? Of like Friday. Oh, it's Friday. We'll have a bottle of wine or two, and then Monday we won't feel too great, and then by Wednesday we'll feel fantastic, and then we'll start again, and we'll
that was the exact treadmill I was on. And because I was on that treadmill, I still didn't think it was an issue. And I was, I was doing everything else. I was meditating, I was running, I was doing all the healthy stuff as well, but it detracted. I was in denial.
Did anybody else tell you it was an issue?
One person once, when I lived in Qatar, a guy called Richard, and he said, I love being with you, but you take it too far. You know what I mean? And I was like, how dare you? You're so boring.
Did you take it with a pinch of salt, or did you?
I brushed it off. And I said it to a few people, and they said no. But then, of course, they were drinking the same as me.
It's that life and soul kind of idea, isn't it? Do you think part of that is it? I think part of it from when you were younger, by the sounds of it, sounds like it was a social thing.
Very much.
Then do you think it developed into like a people-pleasing kind of thing almost?
To a degree it was, because I would always be called upon. It was always guaranteed that if you wanted a good night out, it was like, get Liz.
And then you take
get
on
Liz,
that acting job then, don't you?
Yeah,
It's like, well, that's who Liz is.
Here
That's what
we
Liz
go.
does.
Yeah. And it became exhausting, to be honest.
Yeah.
It did. I used to dream. I used to think, like when I started running first, I used to be able to, I used to dream of like running around Sefton Park without stopping and it feeling disgusting. I used to feel like that about booze. I used to dream about just going, what would it be like if I lived without booze? If I genuinely lived without booze. And every time I'd start to stop, I'd have that motivation and that dopamine kind of spike of
did that happen a lot where you tried and you failed?
Well, my friends used to call me a stopaholic, jokingly, because I love, and you know me now, I channel that energy into all the challenges that I set for people, you know, well-being challenges, which I live by and I love. In those days, it would be always, oh, it's Lent, brilliant, I'll give up the booze. So Ash Wednesday would come, but by Good Friday, oh, sure, look, we'll have a bit more. You know, it was always the beginning of every month, there was always an excuse as well. So
people look to January, don't they? Or they look
January.
to other periods, don't
and
they?
this was before dry January, but I did try dry January a few times. And I suppose being Catholic, not necessarily an active Catholic, but I try Advent, I try Lent, I'd try, I'd make things up. I'd say Magical May, Marvelous May.
So you must have thought yourself that there was a problem.
Yeah.
Even though people weren't saying it.
Yes.
You must have been thinking to yourself all the time, you know, like, God, I need to stop, I need to stop, I need to stop.
I never had, I need to stop.
Right.
I had, I need to moderate.
Right.
So then it became self-criticism. It became inward. So it became directed at, why can't I stop? This is pathetic. Why are you such a loser? That's where it became dangerous. That's when I really
And then you were really tough on yourself and hard on yourself.
Really tough. So even if I knew I had drank wine the night before and I had planned to do a 10-mile training run, I would be out there.
Yeah.
So I was very punishing on myself physically and emotionally and psychologically.
Would you describe yourself at the time as an alcoholic?
No, and I still don't to this day. No,
right.
I would say that I had
Dependence.
it was definitely alcohol. It wasn't a physical dependence, although I did have cravings when it would come to a Wednesday or a Friday night. But that I now know is very much the neural pathways and the training.
Yes.
You know, so it took me a long time to actually train myself to get away from that.
Yeah.
And I know I can't moderate.
Yeah.
I know I can't moderate, but I tend not to use the term alcoholic. I say alcohol use disorder.
Yeah.
And I definitely had
It's
a
a good
disordered.
term. Yeah, it's a good term.
Because I think it's more, I think it gives a wider permission for a wider variety of people to address their drinking.
Yeah.
I would never have really addressed my drinking had I not seen Lucy Rocker on this morning, because she gave me permission.
I mean, you think how many times have you sat and watched things and you know, just been really involved and really interested and then just done nothing about it.
Yeah.
The fact that particular, whatever it was, probably about 10 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, if that, yeah.
How that affect, but you, in my view, you must have, yes, it was triggered. It was a trigger, but you must have really wanted. But there was definitely
a subconscious seed.
Yeah.
And there was definitely. And at the time, because it was 10 years ago, I had started a writing practice that I do every day.
Yeah.
I'm very loyal to it. And it's 3 sides of A4 writing, journaling every day.
Wow.
It's called the Morning Pages.
Yes, you've told me about it.
And I know I've told you about this, but it comes from Julia Cameron and the Artist's Way course.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to write. But remember, I went to uni, saw that everybody was better than me in my head. So I stopped writing.
Yeah.
I did a master's in journalism, never used it.
Yeah.
Used it to teach media and film, but never used it myself. And
Amazing.
It was when I stopped writing, when I stopped drinking, that's when I started to allow myself to be more creative. But part of the drinking, giving up drinking, I suppose, was part of this process of journaling.
Yeah.
Because I could see there was a pattern, that cycle of negative talk, the automatic negative thoughts we talk about when we talk to students today. I call them ants.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the skills to turn those ants into pets, which I call with the kids today, you know, positive, empowering thoughts. I didn't have that skill set.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that kind of aspect of your life. And I know that, you know, some people watch this and, oh, she's given up drinking, so what? But for me, the really important thing about this is what you did when you stopped drinking. Yeah. So how productive you became. I know you went and did another master's.
I did,
in positive psychology.
Yeah.
So talk to us for a couple of minutes about that. And then I want to talk to you before we finish the podcast about the work that you, so the qualification that you did. So why you left teaching briefly, the qualification that you did in positive psychology, and as a result, what you do now.
Yeah.
if that's okay.
Well, when I stopped drinking, I started to read voraciously, and I immersed myself because I had to retrain my neural pathways.
Yeah.
I had to find ways of putting joy into my life that didn't revolve around the pub or socializing or alcohol. And I had to be active about it. And when you stop drinking, as we've said, it was a social glue. It's a very lonely place to be in this society because you're a lone person on a hill, basically banging a drum, and everyone's pointing, going, seriously? A, you weren't that bad. B, you weren't an alcoholic. C, do you think you're over dramatizing it? So there's that. There's also but what do you do if you don't drink because you're bored or you're boring? And I actively found ways to add things into my life so I didn't feel deprived. Now, don't get me wrong. The first 9 months, I say this to people when they stop drinking, whether they're having 1 glass of wine a night or whether they're drinking really dependently, is I say the first 9 months is like, you treat it like a pregnancy. Yeah. You just allow yourself to go, get to bed early, watch Netflix, eat what you like, drink what you like, apart from alcohol, but just be very compassionate with yourself. Yeah. So I had started doing that. I had a daily meditation practice that really helped me. I did some meditation training. I continued with my running. I improved with my running. I felt, for the first time, I felt awake. Yeah. I felt alive. I joined and actively became a member.
For the first time? Yeah. Since you were probably quite young.
Since I was a kid.
That's what you felt they were.
I felt my true self. Yeah. I felt authentic, Steve.
I feel like that when I go somewhere, everybody's drinking and I'm not.
It's great.
It's very empowering, I think. Yeah. And that's just a night or 2 nights or whatever, which I've probably done about 5 times in my life. But I know what you're saying. Yeah. You feel almost like it. You feel more aware, different.
Yeah, I felt more aware, I felt more alive, but I had to realize that for years I had been using alcohol to numb out some of the pain, a lot of the pain. Yeah. So that comes up too. Yeah, okay. So then you've got to find ways to cope with that. Yeah. And thankfully, thanks to Lucy Rocker and Soberistas, I joined their community.
So you had your support network.
And I started to write. Yeah. I started to write blogs. And I started to get feedback for my blogs. Yeah. And it felt amazing because it was a two-way system. I was using the blogs to process my feelings, and I was sharing the blogs and helping people. So people were commenting on my blogs and saying, thanks for saying that. That's really helped me. And my blogs were very much about positive psychology and empowering us, not to look at this as a weakness, but a strength. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the more I was writing, the more I was researching, the more I was listening to podcasts and immersing myself in that world, JMU launched a new course, a master's in positive psychology. Wow. Literally fell on my doorstep.
In Liverpool, where you were living, where you were teaching.
And I got a reduction because I'd already done my first master's there. Yeah. And I had been saving money. Yeah. I'd been saving money because I hadn't been drinking, and I was very mindful of that money. I was saying, this money is going over here into some kind of freedom pot. I don't know what, but I'm going to do something big with it.
But you're still able to, what you were doing is what we like to do, I think, as human beings, is treat ourselves. But you were treating yourselves with new things that were giving you more value. Yes. And more. You were working towards something.
This is it. And the thing that kept me going was this question: does this add value to my life? I asked it about booze.
Did somebody give you that question, or is that?
It's something I found in the literature when I was researching, probably in positive psychology. Yeah. You know, does this add value to my life? And the more I asked it about booze, the more I realized it didn't. But then I had to realize that I had made a decision. Yeah. And it's very easy to kind of be a little bit fluid with our decisions. So this is something that I got on the pages of Soberista. Never question the decision. NQTD. So all my blogs I'd sign off with KOKO, keep on keeping on, because that was something that I picked up in my running days. And NQTD, never question the decision. I wrote that everywhere. And I now know that
were like it was mantras for you at the time. Like
it was basically triggering a part of my brain called the reticular activating system. Yeah. So the more I was looking, you know, that it's like the bouncer of your brain. I love that part, and I use it with students all the time. And it's like the more good you look for, or the more you are aware of NQTD or KOKO, the more you are going to be inclined to make decisions that align yourself with it and that align yourself with your values.
So all this, I mean, do you feel that these changes that you've made, that you've initially, did you have to be really disciplined, or did it were you in that place where you were ready to do it at that time, or was it kind of a combination of the two?
It's a brilliant question. Yeah, I was ready, but the work was work.
And was it tough?
And it was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. And more emotionally and psychologically than anything else. Because if something happens at work and you're stressed, your first port of call is you go home via Asda, you buy a bottle of wine and you sit outside and you process it.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. Or socializing.
Yeah.
There's the loneliness of that. That was hard.
Association with people as well.
Association
Massive,
with people, with
it?
Things, with triggers. I mean, so many triggers everywhere.
Yeah.
Who knew that going to Asda on a Friday evening could be so triggering?
Absolutely.
You know, really.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of work there, but I knew that I was believing, and I knew that I was creating a new identity for myself. And this is where it all stuck, because on the pages of Soberistas, I could see people ahead of me doing it.
Yeah.
And they were like superheroes to me. They were champions.
Did it become a bit of an obsession, do you think?
Yeah, totally.
Really?
What
Yeah.
I channeled the kind of party side of me and that kind of frenetic dopamine side into research, into taking, I take it always a bit far. So I do a master's, I start to write, and then I leave the job and I create my own business.
Yeah.
So that's where all of that positive energy has come from, not wasting my energy on the drinking habit that was there.
And you kind of, the energy that you were kind of almost giving away, you're storing, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then you're using it in different parts of your
Honestly,
life.
it's so empowering.
Yeah,
It's
and you
so
are.
empowering.
I mean, I see you, but I see your stuff on LinkedIn. I see your stuff on, and I probably don't see half of what you do, but you are really inspiring.
Oh,
and really,
thank you. But it comes from a true place. That's the thing. I think when I was drinking, I was in denial, but I was also not authentic.
But what you've done is you've created a best version of yourself, haven't you?
Yeah.
So finally, we've got kind of five or so minutes to go, and I hate putting limits on these podcasts because I'd like to speak to you for
hard,
another
isn't
double
it?
the time.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have a chat about that, the times of our, because I know Stephen Bartlett does an hour and a half, doesn't he?
Does, deep dives.
But I'll have to speak to Roy about that. See if he,
keep an eye.
But obviously, you've gone through this difficult period in your life. You've come out the other side. You're very positive about your life and the choices that you've made and the people that you work with. And obviously now you've got that kind of business where you can work with young people, you can inspire them, you can talk to. I mean, you've worked with lots of young people that I'm kind of connected to. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now then. So from a positive psychologist, you're in your dream job, you've got your dream degree, you've completely transformed your life. What do you do now that helps and supports young people and adults as well? And
adults, because I work with teachers as well.
So tell us about what some of that stuff that you do then, and why that brings you even more inspiration and even more excitement, and why people watching the podcast should know about it.
Well, the clients that I work with inspire me daily, every single day, and I've always loved working with teenagers. I love that age group because they are amazing.
Some people's worst nightmare, isn't it?
I know.
For me, it's the best age
I
group.
adore them. They've got so much potential. And if you get them on the right side, if you can actually help them at all, they're so grateful. And it's empowering. It empowers me to empower them. So stopping drinking enabled me to do the research into habit change. Right? And I have a little maxim: believing plus beginning equals becoming.
I like that.
Believing. So the believing part is giving them the self-belief. So what I do is I work with them to look at what's strong as opposed to what's wrong. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm a positive psychologist. So we look at it from a place of strength. We do positive psychology surveys that enable them to find out what their strengths are. We work on solution-focused therapy to help them look at solutions to move just one rung up the ladder of happiness to enable them to flourish. I give them skills. I give them practical psychology interventions that but the thing is, the beginning is the key here. I can give them all of this. We can talk about all of this. I can research all of this. But unless you start to implement it, information is fine. We all know what to do. It's doing what we know that's hard. So that's why I have so many challenges. They follow me on social media. At the moment, we're in the middle of the summer challenge where I encourage them to do reflection. I encourage people to read or listen to a podcast every single day for inspiration. And I have a thing called the Badass Book Club. I look at self-talk. So I do specific areas of the neuroscience of how we process what we're feeling and the actual chemical
And that was studying your degree.
Yeah.
That gave you all of those.
That.
It gave you that.
Yeah,
that toolkit,
that
didn't it?
Yeah,
you know, I'm a big fan of saying toolkit for working with young, but it doesn't.
Absolutely.
It's not a one size fits all.
No.
You pick parts of that toolkit,
which is why I've always got different elements of my challenges. I've always got an exercise one, because I know how important exercise is. I've got a module on sleep. I've got a module on focus, which is essential. And what I do is I've written a course called Rise Resilience. I go into colleges. I go into schools. I also work one-to-one with students, so I'm parachuted in to kind of, do more deep focused work on a one-to-one basis with students.
And I know some of the work that you've done for me at King's Leadership Liverpool has been fantastic. Some of that one-to-one sessions, that one-to-one kind of positive psychology sessions where you're talking to them specifically about real life kind of things that they can do to change things and move things around, adapt things, improve things for themselves.
They're mind-blowing.
Resilience, doesn't it?
Because really does.
You're equipping them to help themselves.
Yes, and that's what we need. That's what I didn't have when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Because when I was a teenager, I had booze for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I say to students as well. You don't need the externals.
Yeah.
In a world where we're constantly looking for external validation and approval and support outside of ourselves, all of these vantage resources are within.
Yeah.
And if you can find ways of harnessing them, you can do anything. That's what I believe. Every child has got the potential to reach for the stars. And it sounds cliched and it sounds trite, but I 100% believe it.
Yeah.
And I know that, and the science backs it up. And I say that a lot. The science backs it up, but it genuinely does.
You've seen
Steve.
it work, haven't you?
I see it work in front of me on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And it humbles me.
Yeah.
It really humbles me. And I feel that by doing this work, I am doing the work. It gives me meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
It fills me with joy, the positive emotions. It's been wonderful for my own relationships, although my kids tend to take what I say with a pinch of salt. But that's what kids do, isn't it?
Being a parent, isn't it?
It's just like, the internal groaning. But it's also given me a sense of daily accomplishment and achievement. And that's what flourishing is.
Yeah.
It's not easy all the time.
No.
There's times when it might be a bit lean. You don't have a full-time job
and the
with
fight's
a
not over,
pensionable income.
and your battle's not over.
It's not over.
It's not over. It could kind of go, tits up, as they say, within moments.
But I have the resources to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's the thing, I have the resources, and I feel that those resources are accessible and available to everybody. And that's why I love what I do.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully everybody's enjoyed, getting to know a little bit more about you and your story.
Thank you.
About what's led you to do what you're doing now. I've seen it firsthand, the fantastic work that you do with young people. I think, if people want to find out more, is there anywhere that they can find you?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah. You can find me on lisfolan.com. I tend to put little blogs up there. Okay. You can also find me on LinkedIn as Lis Folan.
Perfect.
And on Instagram, I have a sobriety handle. It's at Sunrise Sobriety.
Wow.
Because when I stopped drinking, I woke up. So I call it Wide Awake to an Alcohol-Free Life.
Brilliant.
Because
I lose track with all the things you've got going on. You're just so productive and so positive.
Thank you. And I've got a podcast called Rise as well.
Yeah.
With Julia Carson, sorry.
Brilliant. You've got so much going on, but I'm sure we'll invite you back onto the podcast.
Thank you.
Like I said, there's so much more that I'd like to talk to you about. But I think for me, that's a really good introduction for people watching about your story. And I think people might, kind of look at your story and see themselves some way in it, or
it can be for any habit change,
even as a parent or a relative or a spouse, or they, so that in some way they might, I'm sure they will be inspired by some of the things that you've said and your story and your honesty and what some of the great things that you're doing now. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real privilege.
Thank you.
It's a real privilege.
And we'll see you again, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Great in You podcast. We really appreciate your support. Please like, subscribe and share, and the podcast will be available on Spotify, YouTube and all other social media platforms. Thank you so much. See you next time.